Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating corporate dramas unfolding in the luxury world right now. We're going to unpack Giorgio Armani's absolutely monumental impact on fashion and the incredibly high-stakes transition his independent empire is navigating right now following his passing. You know, this isn't just a story about clothes. It's a story about a multi-billion-dollar privately held machine that is facing an unprecedented legal and structural shift. Okay, let's dive into this. The financial scale we're talking about here is just staggering. In 2024, group revenues hit an estimated 2.5 to 2.7 billion euros. And what makes that number so remarkable is that this massive empire was built and retained as an independent, founder-controlled entity for decades. It completely resisted the gravitational pull of those giant luxury conglomerates. But as we're about to see, that independence is on the verge of a very heavily orchestrated transformation. And here is where the cinematic tension of a ticking clock really begins. So, Giorgio Armani passed away in September 2025 at the age of 91, and his carefully crafted will triggered a legally mandated timeline. The document explicitly requires his heirs to sell an initial 15% holding of the company within 18 months of his death. That places the hard deadline right at March 2027. This leaves a privately held empire facing an unprecedented, legally mandated transition. And honestly, there is massive corporate intrigue building up right now. Why? Well, because current, rather weak luxury market conditions are threatening to delay this highly complex, multi-billion-dollar succession process. To truly understand the immense value of the asset on the table and why this succession is just so absolutely crucial, we have to flash back. We need to understand the revolutionary aesthetic that built this brand in the first place. Section 1. Deconstructing the suit, the aesthetic that built an empire. Armani's rise was incredibly swift. I mean, he started as a medical student completely outside the fashion system. He officially founded the company in 1975 with Sergio Gagliotti, and by 1980, he was already dressing Richard Gere in Hollywood. Tragically, Gagliotti passed away in 1985, and Armani consolidated total creative and managerial control. He held that dual role all the way until his passing in 2025. He was literally the sole architect of this independent dynasty. But what was the actual product that launched this whole timeline? The crucial point of his revolution comes down to one exact contrast. Before Armani, the traditional business suit was stiff. It was filled with heavy internal architecture, a rigid canvas chest, and a fixed padded shoulder. It was essentially corporate armor. Armani famously deconstructed the jacket. He completely removed that stiff internal framework, stripped out the heavy lining, and allowed the fabric to fluidly drape naturally over the body. It completely changed the posture and attitude of modern elegance. And these are the visual codes he used to do it. Armani leaned heavily into complex, neutral palettes, those famous shades of grayish, mushroom, and stone. Because he removed the rigid structure, he relied on fluid fabrics, where the focus was purely on texture and movement. But you know what was really revolutionary? It was how he translated this exact men's tailoring into a sensual, mobile women's wardrobe. It gave women professional power without the armor, delivering what we now recognize as the absolute ultimate blueprint for quiet luxury. Section 2. A global lifestyle empire, mastering brand architecture. And this brilliantly illustrates how Armani scaled that minimalist aesthetic into a massive business through a multi-tiered architecture. Up at the top, you've got the pinnacle Giorgio Armani line for high net worth clients, bringing in an estimated 25 to 30% of fashion revenue. Then, Emporio Armani capturing urban professionals at 35 to 40%. And finally, AX Armani Exchange targeting a youthful entry luxury demographic for another 30 to 35%. This segmentation is just a true masterclass. It captured broad demographics across the globe without ever diluting the core equity of the pinnacle brand. It allowed Armani to become a holistic lifestyle brand, not just a fashion house. The company successfully expanded into experiential retailing. They launched Armani/Casa for interior design in the year 2000 and later ventured into luxury hospitality, famously opening the Armani Hotel right inside the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. He essentially took a way of dressing and turned it into an entire way of living. Section 3. Mastering the red carpet, the Hollywood strategy. Armani cemented his empire's cultural dominance by pioneering cinematic integration. Like we mentioned earlier, dressing Richard Gere in the 1980 film American Gigolo was the spark. But Armani didn't stop there. He essentially pioneered modern red carpet dressing for Cannes and the Oscars. He didn't just dress celebrities. He turned global award shows into highly effective real-time showrooms.
He even launched these one-night-only traveling shows to bring this concentrated cultural impact directly to major cities all over the world. And that incredible celebrity halo effect perfectly positioned the brand for a massive tangential market, perfume. Valued at $62.1 billion in 2025, the global perfume market is projected to hit $85.5 billion by 2035. Armani Beauty, which, by the way, is licensed to L'Oreal until the year 2050, is a top 5 player in this space. Iconic fragrances like Acqua di Gio and C capitalize directly on that Hollywood glamour, creating a massive high-margin revenue stream for the whole group.
Section 4. The 15% stake, the looming deadline.
Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is how this initial 15% stake sale mandated by his will might actually play out. Reports suggest the group has considered dividing the stake equally among 3 preferred buyers who already hold key commercial licenses with the brand. That would mean a 5% holding each for LVMH, L'Oreal, and EssilorLuxottica, leaving the remaining 85% totally intact for the next phase of the succession. It's an elegant solution, right? It keeps all the preferred partners involved. However, the timetable is facing some serious external obstacles. In 2025, annual sales actually declined by 2.8% to 2.192 billion euros. Indirect sales fell by 7%, largely due to wholesale caution and sluggish luxury market conditions across the globe. Management has even noted structural changes in luxury spending. So, because of this really difficult trading environment, there's talk that the March 2027 deadline for the 15% sale could be delayed. And remember why this is so critical? This is just phase 1. The wider succession plan mandates a further 30 to 54.9% stake sale within 3 to 5 years that effectively transfers total control of one of the very last great independent luxury houses.
Section 5. The next chapter. Life after Giorgio. With the founder gone, the brand has instituted a new collective governance structure to replace decades of singular rule, and it's fascinating to see who is steering the ship now. Pantaleo Del Orco, Armani's longtime partner and head of men's style, has stepped up as chairman. Giuseppe Marsocci is taking the reins as CEO, and Silvana Armani steps into the role of vice chairman. This trio is now tasked with carrying the torch and maintaining the brand's incredibly distinct codes. And we're already seeing the results of this transition. Take the recent Autumn-Winter 2026/27 menswear show in Milan. This was Leo Del Orco's first solo presentation without the direct involvement of the founder. It showcased a really subtle, respectful evolution of the Armani codes. We saw the classic supple tailoring, but with a fresh touch of eccentricity. Mesmerizing crinkled velvet, unexpected outerwear colors like greens and purples, and even a surprising, discreet collaboration with Alanui. It was a clear sign that the house is attempting to honor its legendary past while staying curious and receptive to the future. Which brings us to the ultimate question. Can a brand built entirely on a single founder's vision survive without him? Giorgio Armani wasn't just a designer. He was the sole owner, the CEO, and the ultimate editor of an entire way of living for half a century. As this empire navigates a legally mandated multi-billion-dollar sell-off amidst a pretty rocky luxury market, we have to wonder, can his specific system of quiet luxury truly outlive its legendary architect? It's a massive transition, and for sure, the entire luxury world is watching closely to see what happens next.